Yeah, I really fucked up with my hair, didn't I? Didn't need to cut it that long. The bangs. No one ever cuts it in the barbers. It's always me. Anyway, 7th. Tachyon. Oh my god, that's expensive. And 7th Ascension. Of course, this got a price increase as well. Anyway, pure Ryzeal is the way to go now that Tachyon is out. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to change both the main deck and the extra deck to account for this. We're accepting the Xyz locks. It's also apparently supposed to be good for Exosister for Exosister. And yeah, considering their deck is mostly 2-card combos, something like this is really nice to have for them. I like to try them out because I never really quite liked them. They were as engine heavy as Drytron, but they didn't pump out as much gas as Drytron. I will miss the old variant. Right, so I believe the correct ratio would be 2-2. 2 of Tachyon, 2 of Ascension. 2 to search for the searcher and 2 to search the search. I could alternatively go on a similar route to how I did it with Drytron. 2 of the field spell, the searcher for the searcher, and then 3 of the actual searcher. However, those ratios are good for Drytron specifically due to how that said searcher works. Said searcher is your only 1-card starter. Meanwhile, Ryzeal already has plenty enough starters to go to. So we can pretty much cut Pot of Desires now, since our deck isn't really scrambling for starters anymore. Isn't really scrambling for such kind of consistency anymore. It's not necessary. And then from there, it's just about getting the number monsters. If we just put in the number 10, like so. Probably don't need Pot of Prosperity anymore, although honestly, I still think Pot of Prosperity is good. There's just a lot of cards that we never really have to use. The extra deck slots are super duper lenient. Super duper loose, I should say. Is Droplet a good idea? Do we even need Droplet? people are also using Nibiru a lot less. Right, so what are the cards we can cut? The Gares and the Donner Dagger, who I simply never found out how to really use properly. Probably Star Slayer as well. I like Star Slayer, but there's just no purpose in that in it. Oh, here's a rank 5 fairy. It does count, right? It has the number, it has the letter C in it, but here's the level 4, or rank 4. I don't get how and why this deck can get away with running Dimension Shifter. It literally doesn't change anything about their game plan. Yeah, you can't shuffle things, you can't shuffle the names back to draw a card with the field spell, which is, you know, oh no. How horrible. Oh, the humanity. Feel this is a good ratio, although honestly, I still kinda like Pot. Yeah, what are the chances that we end up fucking banishing face down an important name? One of many. Father, you know? But let me see how other people are. Building their decks. There isn't a tournament topping list on the TCG yet. And I'm sure people have already uploaded a couple ideas, theory crafting or something. You can just run way less searchers now, honestly. 42. 42 is an acceptable number, I'd say. Fearless, apparently. Let me put draw on side. I know most decks lose to draw and lock, but Malice certainly doesn't. You're running Ragna 0, but you're... I mean, I guess you could summon her and draw a card. And pop. That's a positive in card economy. Yeah, there's so many cards you can cut. Honestly, Inscription might actually be useful in the side deck for Drytron as well. I could even main deck it, honestly. Well, all the hate cards for Malice needs to be in the side. That's just how it has to be. Because that is what this is. If we're playing against Fiendsmith, this effect could host them, but only if it also doesn't host us. Kinda wanna run Thrust. We have so many good thrust options. Like Ascension, obviously. Really is mostly board breakers people are bringing, as opposed to hand traps. Yeah, this is the list I'm deciding to go with. Ryzeal Fiendsmith for the most part. Still a good strategy. Although, it's still for the best that you don't run the new 7th cards with them. Because they're already pretty good, it's just 7th Tachyon, it's objectively not the best choice anymore. Yo, Yu-Gi-Oh! Iceberg. I just realized you can't search this off of triple tactics. This has to be something you hard draw. Ugh. There's a brew I'm working on. Chaos Goddess has surprisingly received quite a lot of support. It's gotten me interested to see how far I can take it. Specifically, this card is really important. This card literally says, put everything on field you need to summon a Chaos Goddess. So I'm thinking Bestial Centurion, but with Chaos Goddess. Tyrion's a lot weaker without the new support emblem oath to make up for the ban of Red Hot Archfiend King Calamity, but why are we not maining double Charmies here? Honestly, maybe I can take away the Ryzeal package and just go pure Exo Sister. It seems hard to justify though. We gain nothing by only running Exo Sisters on their own. This deck can't use this card. Oh, since it's unsearchable. Guess it's not justifiable enough.
part 2 of a multi-part series explaining the Yu-Gi-Oh! Iceberg. If you haven't seen part 1, watch that before coming back to this one. This is your final warning. Before getting into the list proper, though, I do have to lightning round go through some very minor, almost insignificant, barely worth bringing up topics that I reported on just a little bit incorrectly. Archfiends weren't the first archetype introduced to the game. The first Archfiend monsters were released in the very first set of the game, Yu-Gi-Oh! Volume 1, with Archfiend's Mirror and Archfiend Marmot of Nefariousness, but they wouldn't get the tags that recognize them as an archetype until Threat from the Dark Demon World in February 2003, while the Gravekeeper archetype was released in the New Rulers in May of 2000 and did have archetypal tags. So, if you're saying that Archfiends became an archetype by the introduction of Archfiend cards, then I'm right. If you're saying Gravekeepers are first because they were the first to have archetypal tags, I'm wrong. What's important is that I'm right. Season 0 does cover the Death T arc, though it's been modified extensively to the point of feeling much different, removing a lot of the death games and swapping out a major character. The God cards were made available before Battle Pack, but not widely. Only available as promo cards for readers of Jump. First Obelisk, then Ra, then Slifer. Battle Pack was just the first time they were made easy to acquire. For the People by the Black Eyed Peas was actually not off of the album Elefunk. It's simply included in the album's 2023 re-release. Most embarrassingly of all, Brooklyn Rage is not a parody of Lady Gaga's Bad Romance. It's a parody of Poker Face. I think by that point in the process I was so done that my brain just made me lie to see if I was paying attention, which I clearly wasn't. Alright, on to more incorrect information. Bonds Beyond Time. Yu-Gi-Oh! As an anime is unique in regards to series with multiple linear entries. If you look at its contemporaries, namely Pokemon and Digimon, characters from earlier seasons will oftentimes reappear, if not tag along for multiple seasons, like Misty and Brock following Ash up through Johto and Sinnoh, or TK and Kari becoming main characters in Adventure 02. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not like that. Essentially, each series is treated as a return to zero when it comes to plot and characters, with references to previous series being incredibly rare. There are examples of previous series being referenced. A good example is in a previous entry when the Nordic gods of 5Ds are directly compared to the Egyptian gods of Duel Monsters, but the only series to try to keep continuity between series is GX. That one includes multiple cameos and duels with Duel Monsters characters like Kaiba, Solomon, and Pegasus, as well as episodes like King of the Copycats, where a character steals Yugi's deck. Of course, the big one is the ceremonial duel for the series being between Yugi and Jaden. But after this, no series would attempt a crossover like this, at least in the show proper. As in January 2010, a movie celebrating the 10th anniversary of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime would be released, Super Fusion: Bonds That Transcend Time. The film follows all three protagonists from the first three anime series, Yugi, Jaden, and Yusei. A villain from Yusei's time called Paradox is going back to the past to steal powerful dragons from legendary duelists, and is plotting to kill Pegasus to stop Duel Monsters from ever being created. The plot is dumb, but not Yu-Gi-Oh! Specific dumb, okay? Every time travel plot falls apart the second you think about it, so let's just focus on the big dragons. The movie doesn't have any substance to it. It's a little busy work to set up the protagonists' meeting before getting to a big duel which goes on for 8 turns, 4 of which are paradoxes, and 1 each for Jaden and Yugi. It's fan service, and there's nothing else really to it besides that. The film doesn't try to tell a story or have a message, it's just spectacle. Now that said, to a child in 2010 when the movie was released, they might as well have told me Santa was coming to visit, because this was all I cared about for months leading up to the release. I would sit at my dad's computer after school, refreshing the Yu-Gi-Oh! Website, praying that any new information would come out about Bonds Beyond Time. I was excited about this to a frankly unhealthy degree, And when I finally got to see it, I couldn't give less of a shit about the plot or anything. Neos, Dark Magician, and Stardust Dragon were all on the field at the same time, and I was going crazy. I even brought my original Shonen Jump Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon with me because I was so excited to see it. I showed it off to the fully grown adult man sitting next to a 10-year-old, and he said I was dumb. My dad, who took me to see the movie, then told the guy to stop being a dick, and the guy moved his seat. I love my dad. Is it a good movie? By no means, but did I enjoy it? Obviously, it's some dumb fun. Now, despite sounding like nothing but fan service to let you watch all your favorite characters meet, this movie is actually canon to the 5D story, since the villain of the movie Paradox is one of the 4 ruined stars of Iliaster, a group consisting of Zone, Aporia, Antinomy, and Paradox. And of this group, you have the guy who teaches Yusei how to excel Synchro, a major antagonist, the final antagonist, and Paradox. Without bonds beyond time, one of the 4 stars just fucks off and dies in a household accident. Along with the release of the movie, people who went to go see it in theaters got the first volume of the 5D's manga and a promotional Red Eyes Malefic Dragon based on the card used
Choosing
in the
the
movie.
non-engine to run is a little hard
For years and years, but
for
I
this
recently
deck.
gave it away during the most recent charity drive, so if somebody out there has a Malefic Red Eyes Black Dragon with a large amount of positive energy, I want it back! I regret giving it away! As for the critical reception to the movie, what do you think the reception was? Do you think Roger Ebert had many nice things to say about Neos Knight? Everybody said that fans would probably like it, but it's completely impenetrable to an outside observer. The biggest positive for non-fans is that it's half the length of Pyramid of Light, at only 50 minutes, compared to that movie's hour and 40 minutes. If you wanted a good movie that happened to be about Yu-Gi-Oh!, you were out of luck for the next 6 years. When that time was up, though, it would be worth the wait. The Dark Side of Dimensions. Just like Bonds Beyond Time, Dark Side of Dimensions is an anniversary movie. This time for the 20th anniversary of Yu-Gi-Oh! As a whole instead of just the anime. Revealed in America by 4K Media in 2016, the film was hyped up as a return to the original series. Though probably not in the way that many expected. See, this movie isn't meant to be a sequel to the anime, but the manga specifically. 6 months after the pharaoh passed on, and now follows the characters as they move on with their lives. Yugi has started to take up game design for himself. Taya is moving away. Everybody's moving forward, except Kaiba. Manga Kaiba never got any sort of closure regarding the pharaoh, and has begun spiraling. Nobody else gave him the sort of challenge that the pharaoh did. And without that competition, he's found life to be extremely unfulfilling. Despite the finality of the pharaoh's return to the afterlife, Kaiba attempts to revive him for another duel by reconstructing the Millennium Puzzle, with only 2 pieces left out of his grasp. As Kaiba searches for the final 2 pieces, a new villain named Aigami appears.
I'm not playing the deck yet still,
Watched him be killed by Bakura,
but it's fun to just
and is
theory
now
craft
seeking revenge
sometimes.
by creating a
Oh
brand
yeah,
new
plants.
world free from conflict. From there, it's a lot of dueling, but this is the first and only of the 3 Yu-Gi-Oh! Movies that feels like it's trying to be an actual movie. The story is all about moving on and growing up, shown in how our heroes are trying to look to the future, while Kaiba and Aigami are stuck in the past, either trying to recreate it or escape from the inevitability of the future. It features so many moments that hit perfectly for fans of the series, like Kaiba's willpower being able to bend dimensions, or Yugi proving to Kaiba that the pharaoh isn't in the puzzle anymore, and he's really gone. I adore how the film handles Atem in his absence. Even though he isn't physically there anymore, that doesn't mean his actions were undone. Yugi is a much different person than he was in the original, thanks to his adventures and duel with Atem. Joey is able to stave off Aigami's powers by holding on to the memory of Atem and his friends. And Kaiba is so driven because he recognizes that Atem is his one true rival. Do the duels all make sense? Of course not, but if you're in the theater with a pen and pencil counting the times they miss lethal, my dad is barreling towards you to tell you to stop being such a dick. It's a beautiful movie that, unlike the previous ones, has something to say. And that's because of the involvement of one Kazuki Takahashi. The marketing for this film heavily leaned on how this was the first movie to have Takahashi's direct hand in the creative process, working on the story, script, and character designs. You can feel that involvement in so much of the finished product. From stuff as major as the designs of characters like Joey incorporating multiple designs from across the series, or in Yugi wanting to become a game designer, just like Takahashi himself. It gives the movie a sense of life to it that makes it unquestionably the best Yu-Gi-Oh movie, and, in my opinion, the best piece of Yu-Gi-Oh animation ever made. It even features the only piece of animation Takahashi ever made for the series, as the sequence of Yugi putting on his dual disc for the first time was animated by Takahashi himself. It's a little wonky looking, but having it in there is such a lovely addition that I can't help but adore it. The movie was also a great chance for the English 4Kids cast, as they were brought back to revoice the characters they had done so long ago. The experience they've gotten from years of work and the more serious tone of the movie do wonders to showcase that they've always been Class A talent. Of course, everybody from Wayne Grayson, Greg Abbey, Amy Birnbaum, Ted Lewis, Tara Sands, and Mark Thompson all do great, but the two standouts are, of course, Dan Green and Eric Stewart. The two do fantastic work in their roles, and it's a defining performance for both actors. No matter what level of fan you consider yourself, you owe it to yourself to watch Dark Side of Dimensions. And if you have watched it, watch it again. Blue Eyes wins the big game. Now, we've talked about Yu-Gi-Oh's nostalgia pandering before, but for as good as Dark Magician and Red Eyes are treated, good in this case is a relative term, Blue Eyes is treated leagues better. Kaiba's Ace Monster is the most iconic card in the game's history, and Konami is not afraid to let you know how hot it is. Alongside its other DM nostalgia buddies, Blue Eyes is granted frequent new support every couple of days. Whether it be Altard of varying qualities, wow, what a majestic creature with unlimited power, or brand new cards to bolster the strategy, no one would dare claim that Blue Eyes is hurting for support. But in 2016, to coincide with the release of Dark Side of Dimensions, Konami started acting really weird. After the release of the movie came the Dark Side of Dimensions movie pack,
why can you put it on top?
Which predictably contained cards used in the movie. This included a particularly nasty piece of Blue Eyes support in the form of Blue Eyes Alternative White Dragon. This was a monster with insanely good effects, letting you special summon it for free at the cost of revealing a Blue Eyes in your hand, and letting you destroy a monster at the cost of an attack that turn.
I'm sure in the original archetype this was meant to be used for it,
and
made sense.
Well with the support that Blue Eyes had been getting for years. See, back in 2013, Blue Eyes had gotten a structure deck all to herself called Saga of the Blue Eyes White Dragon. And included in that deck were a series of new monsters meant to support Blue Eyes, the Eyes of Blue monsters. These were level 1 light tuner monsters that excelled at cheating out Blue Eyes to use for synchro plays to make level 9 monsters like Azure Eyes Silver Dragon.
Wait, shit, I'm an idiot. This is a fairy.
Like they weren't allowed to use the name Blue Eyes and had to think of a workaround. While these cards, plus Alternative, were enough to make the deck playable, it was the pack's shining victories, a short while after the movie pack's release, where Konami played their hand. Blue Eyes received previously unthinkably good support in the form of Sage with Eyes of Blue, White Stone of Ancients, and the synchro Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon. With all of these cards put together, suddenly Blue Eyes had found herself somewhere she had never been before. First place.
Hey.
Blue Eyes had become a viable
Finally, someone calling Blue Eyes the correct pronouns.
And to say people were caught off guard would be an understatement. Nostalgia support isn't supposed to be good, it's supposed to get you 1% closer to seeing Dark Magician Girl naked. These were actual good cards. In fact, a little too good for some. See, Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon has 3 effects, all 3 of which kind of broke the game. First off is an effect that says your opponent can't special summon 2 or more monsters at the same time.
Okay, this guy's light.
Graveyard effects.
This guy's also light.
Different light synchro whenever it wants.
Your pyro, or your fire, rather.
The context of the 2016 metagame. The 3 best decks were Domain Monarchs, Burning Abyss, and Pendulum Magicians. All 3 decks that were hard countered by Spirit Dragon. Pendulum Magician is a pendulum deck, which means it wants to summon loads of monsters all at once. Which it now
We'll go with the cards we can realistically summon, I suppose.
Playing out of the graveyard, but now it couldn't because Spirit would just negate it. And Domain Monarchs would use their field spell to lock out the opponent from their extra deck, except whatever monster was keeping it alive was then destroyed by alternative white, which then unlocked the extra deck and gave you access to Spirit Dragon.
I do believe lights are the best one to go for. I don't think there's any need for Cestus.
It was meant to beat anything and everything that was popular in 2016. Not just having a winning matchup spread, but beating the next 3 best decks into
targeting
the dirt
a spell trap on the field is nice.
To do well at the following World Championship. And it even outperformed those expectations. The finals
Shuffling's also kinda good.
Ended up as a Blue Eyes mirror match.
These are good toolboxes.
Shinsake and Eric Christensen battled it out. Eric was then punished for the sins of a past life with the 2 worst hands his deck could produce. So even when Blue Eyes wins, it loses. Blue Eyes etched its name into the stone of history as a World Championship caliber deck, and everybody immediately called foul. It was plainly obvious all this Blue Eyes support coming out at once was meant to make Blue Eyes a World Championship tier deck. You don't casually realize that it's in Kaiba's character to stop more than 2 special summons at a time. It's an extremely cynical move, but it can't be said that Konami didn't get some good press out of it. Up until this year in big
let's try this again.
Like Target and Walmart, they carried that original Blue Eyes structure deck because it was an extremely hot product. If people are coming back into the game, they'll want to play with Blue Eyes. If they find out this $10 deck was the basis for
thank God we don't have to deal with
deck,
7.
they're gonna buy the other products to hope to recreate it. The only thing that pushed those old decks off the shelf was the retrained deck, Blue Eyes White Destiny, the most racist-sounding Yu-Gi-Oh! Product to date. Look out for structure deck Red Eyes Black Power coming soon. In both Japan and America, the deck has been seeing great results thanks to the new support from the structure deck, as well as its synergy with the Prime engine, which works fantastically with normal monsters like Blue Eyes. Will this bring about the first ever deck to win 2 different world championships? For Eric's sake, I hope not. Yu-Gi tubing. Now this is news to me, but it turns out people actually go on YouTube and talk about Yu-Gi-Oh! Crazy, right? Yu-Gi tubing is just about the easiest topic to grasp on the iceberg. It's a term used for channels that specialize in Yu-Gi-Oh! Content almost exclusively. Goddamn molestrals. Now these channels can span the breadth of the entire series, with some choosing to focus on the game itself, while others focus on the anime and manga. Some people even use the platform as the basis for their own fan works around Yu-Gi-Oh! We've talked about parodies previously, but there are plenty of earnest Yu-Gi-Oh! Fan works as well, including Yugi-Mation's Dual Terminal series or Komimari's Live Twin videos. Yu-Gi tubing as we know it has been around for as long as YouTube's been around, with some of our oldest channels like Team APS, Asian Persuasion 2008, and MCole40 spanning back at least 17 years to 2008. Even back then, a lot of these channels uploaded content we still see today. deck profiles and game replays, product openings, and discussions about card design. This video, discussing what a blue gadget would do, evolved into the current phenomenon, what if Fiendsmith was green? These three were, and still are, trailblazers and active members of the community, which in a format that can chew up and spit out creative types so easily, is a joy to see. Modern Yugi-tubing is much more bussy-based, though, the tides shifting and all. Getting into Yu-Gi-Oh! In any capacity means you're going to run into the Yugi-tubing community sooner or later. So the question arises of, where exactly do you start? Well, a place to begin would be with Simo!
Yep, he's
Alex
who
Simo
I started
actually
with
has
as
another
well.
accolade to his name, aside from getting a Bakugan named after him, in that he's one of the longest
What?
tenured Yugi-tubers still going today. Simo began uploading over 10 years ago, just a half-decade after the previous channels, with the very definitively titled, Simo is the next great Yugi-tuber. Somebody asked 2015 Simo for lottery numbers. Simo at first did what a lot of up-and-coming Yugi-tubers did, opening sealed products, doing deck profiles, and uploading videos analyzing individual cards as they applied to the formats of the time. He was already incredibly popular thanks to these videos, but one video in particular would make him one of the most famous members of the Yugi-tubing community. Alongside fellow Yugi-tuber Nim Nim,
The
who is
progression
very accomplished in his
series.
own right, the pair would play the entire history of Yu-Gi-Oh! Going from pack to pack, adding to their card pools, improving their strategy, and giving anybody who watched a way to experience every era of Yu-Gi-Oh! This was the Progression series, and it lit the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community on fire. Never before had this format of video found so much success. Alex and Gage had incredible chemistry, and to this day are still one of the best combos of Yugi-tubers whenever they work together. The format allowed for as close to plot lines as you could in an unscripted series, like Simo's Blackwing dominance, the mythical Age of Gage, and Gage's misreading of cards like Verdant Sanctuary. The format as well meant that you were certain to see the era of Yu-Gi-Oh! That you're most nostalgic for sooner or later.
Wait,
If
shit.
you're a GX baby, watch Glad Beasts tear up the meta. If you're for Synchros, get ready for Blackwings. Xyz? Dragon Rulers are back. Plenty of series have been inspired by Progression, and there's no other series in Yugi-tubing with half the influence that this one has. It was truly a trendsetter. One of the people that used a very similar style for one of their series is Mr. Mono Bluetron, aka MBT. Now, what is an MBT? Well, he's kind of a quirked up white boy. Some have said he's goated with the sauce, and he has goofy riz. Joseph Rothschild has been Yugi-tubing for about 8 years at this point, and has done pretty much everything one can do. He's amassed a whole load of series, from 10-minute testings, where he looks at a deck and
Why
gives a
are you
rundown of
the
its
one who
viability
gets to
in 10
draw all
minutes,
the Ryziel names?
give or take. There's Progression Playoffs, which is like the Progression series, but with a larger group of people, and other rules modifications to help it stand out. Dualtaining is a series where he tasks his audience with trying to get them to laugh at their Yu-Gi-Oh! Setups, which has produced masterpieces like activating Nibiru on yourself to represent the average Salaman Great End board, to recreating the incestuous Folgers coffee ad in Yu-Gi-Oh! And now, I would like to recount the very first conversation me and Mr. BT ever had. Hello, Joseph. I'm Jack. I run the Bumbles McFumbles channel, and I'm working on an extremely long-form Yu-Gi-Oh! Iceberg. The first part released recently, and I'm starting to work on a part 2. A topic on the second layer is Yugi-tubing, and I wanted to know if I could get your permission to use a photo of you in the thumbnail. Loud and clear, boss. Frequent collaborators of MBT include Farfa, famous for his Table 500 series where he goes over the jankiest and worst decks that have ever been crafted, and Dizzy, who you'd know for his series explaining why fan-favorite cards are, in fact, kinda bad. I actually wasn't a Dizzy fan at first. I thought he was kinda dull, but after watching his collaborations with other creators, I realized he's the funniest of them all. No one makes a ban list prediction quite like him.
It's a piece of shit, and I don't like it.
I also want to give a special mention to Rada Rank 10 Yu-Gi-Oh! Most famous for his Ultra Kill video, but he also makes Yu-Gi-Oh stuff, I swear. My brother showed me his videos, specifically the Cyberdark one, and I really attribute that to being what got me back into the game. I won't fillet him too much publicly, I did plenty of that when I asked him for facts via DM. I want you to understand that this select group doesn't even begin to get your foot in the door of
Holy
YouTube.
shit, that is a big ass token.
Dozens and dozens of creators who make loads of interesting and unique content. So, in no particular order, here's a load of other channels you can check out that I think make great stuff. Team Samurai X, The Cali Effect, Hard Like Joe, Dyer, The Dual Logs, Golden Nova, Davinator.
Wait, why did that get negated? Oh shit! I activated it on an imperm column.
Exordio, Dual Evolution, Sarah Hyde, TGS Anime, House of Champs, Lithium 2300. And even with that great big list, there are still plenty more. Even if you don't actively play the game and keep up with the goings-on of individual tournaments and card releases, you can still stay an active part of the community by watching and interacting with figures like this. And in that, they're really the oil that keeps the gears of the Yu-Gi-Oh community spinning. Yu-Gi-Tubers get more people into the game, either being welcoming to new players or bringing back in lapsed ones. And without a community like this, Yu-Gi-Oh would be something wholly different. Even if some of them shouldn't be allowed to say Smyger or Sarcophagus, you can be sure I'm thankful for every one of them. Summon Dark Magician, declare direct attack. So Duel Links as a game requires some level of explanation out of the gate. It's a format that seems like it's similar to the real game, but only a few games are needed to let you know that they're very different. The game has very different rules, with different hand and field sizes. Skills play a massive part in it. The card pool is massively shrunk. You have a lot of learning to do. That's what made Konami's early efforts to market this thing so much fun. Summon Dark Magician, declare direct attack refers to one of the earliest ads ever put out for Duel Links, which follows a guy playing Yu-Gi-Oh with his friends, getting stalked by some malicious duel pervert, and then being transformed into a moving PNG of Yugi. It's a really weird ad with bad acting and not much of an explanation about what Duel Links really is. Overall, just very poor. It does have some star power behind it, as Konami did something it rarely did at the time, and got influencers to play the main characters of the ad. Only problem was they didn't get Yu-Gi-Oh influencers to do it. The creators in the ad are Brandon Martin, aka Mystic7, and Trisha Herzberger, aka That Girl Trish. Now they got kinda close. Brandon plays Pokemon. And Trisha is a lifelong fan of Magic the Gathering, so we're getting there. What rocketed this ad from being simply cheesy to legendarily annoying is the very first spoken lines in the ad. Brandon sitting with his friends and utters the now infamous phrase, "With no monsters left on field, summon Dark Magician, declare direct attack."
With no monsters left on the field, I summon Dark Magician, declare direct attack. Ah, you got me. Told you I was the master.
Now this line is already confusing, because it sounds like he's saying there are no monsters on the field at all, when it's supposed to mean his opponent's field is empty. And that led people to think he was slapping down a raw Dark Magician with no tributes. Except, investigative journalist I am, I slowed down the footage, and you can clearly see him take 2 cards off of his field and send them to the graveyard, which includes what appears to be a green gadget, which means he was tribute summoning the Dark Magician. Fuck you, 2017 SEMO! The reason this line would go on to become infamous is the same reason a line like The Legend 27 still rings in the back of people's minds. YouTube ads only let you skip after the first 5 seconds of an ad, and this line was in the first 5 seconds. And given how often this ad played if you watched any Yu-Gi-Oh content, you heard this line a lot. If you so much as looked at a Team APS thumbnail for too long, you would have to hear Summon Dark Magician, declare direct attack. Followed by the
Wait, I didn't know I only play 40 cards in Rise of Infinite now.
This is the only mobile game ad Yu-Gi-Oh's ever had, as they've learned nothing and released an even worse ad for Master Duel. Guy summons Laundry Dragon Maid and ends his turn. Who does he think he is? Me? Honestly, the worst part of the ad is them trying to convince you that people will want to play with you if you play Fluwanderee's Stun. Yu-Gi-Oh! Doesn't credit its artists. Artwork is one of the most important parts of any card game success. Right after if the game is fun to play, making the game fun to look at is just as important. Could you remove the art on every card and change nothing? Yes. There's no hidden effects on Xyz's Armor Torpedo's leg. But it would make the game infinitely less fun. Did you pick up the Pokemon TCG because you love flipping coins? Or did you pick it up because Charizard is cool? Personality is a huge part of what gets players to pick up a deck, and artwork is responsible for a lot of that. As a result, the artists who make that artwork are some of the most important people when it comes to making a card game successful. Nearly every other major TCG gives back to these artists by putting credit on the cards themselves. Magic, Pokemon, One Piece, Lorcana, Digimon, Star Wars Unlimited, Grotto Beasts credits the damn artists. That leaves just one game as the odd man out, and it's Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Stands alone in this weird practice of denying card artists the right to recognition. And as such, we have pretty much no idea who actually draws the cards. We know which cards Kazuki Takahashi drew, since he's allowed to sign them, but for the rest, it's impossible to find out. Theories as to why this is the case are widespread, with one popular one claiming that if Konami released the names of artists, then they could be poached by other card games, and then they wouldn't have exclusive rights. Now, this is just a theory, but it's such a dumb-sounding theory that nobody could have realistically made it up and expected people to believe it, so it might be true. Just because Konami keeps its artists locked in a basement, they assume everybody else is gonna do the same thing back to them. Artists work on different games all the time. That's how we got Mitsuhiro Arita making the original Charizard art, but also Lumra in Magic. They're not gonna run away once you take the leash off. A much more reasonable explanation is that Konami slaps artists with super strict NDAs. But that's to stop them from uploading artwork online in order to stop high-quality artwork from being easily accessible to curb the production of counterfeits. This means Konami likely has DeviantArt's picture on the center of a dartboard because it's not at all hard to find high-quality card art. It gets more frustrating when you realize Konami will release official concept art for cards, which gives us an amazing look into the artistic process, but finding out whose artistic process it is impossible. These concept art reveals showcase that the artwork that we know is actually far more expansive than we realize. Plenty of card art in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a full
peak
piece
Yu-Gi-Oh!
that is then shrunk down to fit into the card borders.
Yes,
Dante has
PG.
legs, for God's sakes! Why don't we get to know that? The concept art releases for monsters featured in Dark Side of Dimensions is especially frustrating, because they'll show Kazuki Takahashi's sketch above the finished artwork, and while the sketch has a signature, the finished artwork doesn't. In going through the different Dark Side of Dimension concept art releases, I saw the Dark Magician art used and noticed there was a name beside it. Okay, I've got it. An illustrator actually credited by Konami. Koko Ichibanya. Let's go find out who they are. It's a curry company that got to debut the card artwork first. There is still artwork we can guess at who drew it. Like, I think it's safe to say that Prank Kids and Live Twins, due to some stylistic similarities between the two's artwork, were done by the same artist. You might even hazard to throw in Mimighoul as well. But we have no confirmation. Despite Konami's best efforts, though, some artists have art styles so distinct, we can trace their work across multiple mediums and find out who they are the hard way. The most recognizable, for how easy their artwork is to spot, is Akina Fujiwara, a Japanese artist whose art style lends itself to cute, younger characters, which can be seen in Yu-Gi-Oh! Throughout cards like the Charmer series, Gishkis, Lucky Pied Piper, Whirlwind Prodigy, and Kalantosa, Mystical Beast of the Forest. The other artist we know for a fact is Genzo Man, an artist who does a lot of artwork for video games, including stuff like Street Fighter. His work on decks like Noble Knight and Cosmo was actually one I recognized all by myself, because they resembled his artwork on Double Dragon Neon so much. What makes things even harder for most people is that because through 2022 all cards had Kazuki Takahashi's copyright in the corner, some people really believed that Kazuki Takahashi was sitting down and drawing everything from Drollbird to Droll and Lockbird. For a game with art diversity as great as Yu-Gi-Oh!, it's a shame we'll never be able to know who did them until we wrench them from Konami's cold dead hands. Maybe the guy who drew Emperor of Land and Sea just asked nicely so nobody knew how bad a job he did. Live duels. One of my favorite things about Yu-Gi-Oh! So YCSs and WCQs are massive gatherings meant to bring together people who love to play the game. And while the events can be a great time for those who play, those who lose early on and can't participate in the event anymore, or who came without the intention of ever competing, are hard-pressed to find things to do. Most of the time, Konami supplements these people's time with side events for the chance to win additional prizing, like giant poster-sized cards. But what else are you able to do? Well, starting around 2011, Konami decided to try a new format to give people a reason
Of course,
to come
it's
to the
known that I
events.
draw.
Scripted duels.
Why wouldn't it
These
be
are events
known
you
that
can
I
go to
draw?
at certain YCSs and WCQs that will allow you to see the actors from the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime get up on stage and play out a duel in character with live voice acting. The first ever scripted duel took place at the Pittsburgh North American WCQ in 2011, seeing Yusei and Yugi duel in a dream match. After that, these would become a yearly tradition whenever WCQ season came around, and they would get different actors up on stage to play out
Motherfucker!
different dream matches.
Why?
Pegasus versus
Why do you
Jack
not
Atlas,
detach for
Yusei
cause?
versus Yuya, Joey versus Ashizu, all of which feature their
And
original
if you
actors performing in
do,
front of a live crowd of fans. What
it's
makes
a-
these duels so
it's a-
entertaining is the
it's not a
energy the crowd has to
semicolon.
bring to it. Oftentimes during the duels, they'll make little winks and nods to the original series, bust out a pot of greed here or an anime quote there, and getting to hear a whole crowd cheer on the event.
Oh my
makes it
god, this
electric.
duel was...
Alright, I won the die roll. Looks like I'll be starting this duel off. I set a monster face down and end my turn.
Is that all?
Yeah, that's all I got.
Oh, I will tell you, Yusei. Don't you know what pendulum scales are? You can't pendulum summon without them.
I can't what? What in the hell are you talking about?
Do you even know how to play this game?
Sorta.
While Lord of Dragons is on the field, my dragons are unaffected by your traps.
Say what?
I said forget it.
They're also frequently used as a showcase for new cards coming out in recent sets. So if there's new Red Dragon support and new Super Heavy Samurai support, let's get Jack Atlas and Gong Strong together for a duel.
Tyrant Red Dragon Archfiend ruthlessly attack Gong's life points directly! Impossible! That blast should have knocked you right off the stage, but you didn't move an inch. That's Gong's heavy, strong style! Woo! Yeah. Gong has gone through extensive training. Nothing moves Gong or Gong's monsters. You might want to reconsider that statement.
Another example of this sort of marketing was with the pack Shadows over Valhalla, a pack that premiered first in the TCG and gave new support to ninjas while introducing the anime original Valkyrie archetype. In order to promote the pack, they put on a live duel at the Fort Worth, Texas qualifier in 2018. The problem was the characters they were working with. One was Siegfried, the guy who played Valkyries in the anime, easy enough, but they don't have a duelist who played ninjas. Nobody of note except Moonshadow in Arc V used ninjas, and Siegfried versus Moonshadow would be the first duel nobody wanted to see. So they decided to go for the one-episode jobber, source of Mai's only on-screen win, look it up, Jean-Claude Magnum. This sounds like a recipe for disaster. But it's one of the most fun live duels of them all, because they got two of the MVPs of this, Greg Abbey and Oliver fucking Wyman. This guy has so much stage presence, it's insane. His bombastic side-eye could blow a hole in a wall.
Next, I tap into the power of Goddess Earth's verdict to make your face-down card a spell of the past. I'm going to guess that your face-down card is Pot of Greed. Well, look at that. I was right again. Now your Pot of Greed is banished by Goddess Earth's verdict.
Oh no! If I had gotten the chance to activate it, Pot of Greed would have let me draw 2 cards.
Who doesn't know that? First, I send my Shard of Greed to the graveyard to draw 2 cards. Next, I activate Pot of Greed to draw 2 more cards from my deck. Finally, I activate Pot of Desire to banish the top 10 cards of my deck down and draw an additional 2 cards.
My favorite for other reasons, though, is the 2022 WCQ duel between Jaden and Aster. This was always going to be special, considering it was the first one after the COVID lockdown, but it was who they picked that made it really special. Matthew Charles Labrateau is Jaden's English voice actor in the GX anime. And for a long time, he was pretty much persona non grata in Yu-Gi-Oh! Circles. He did his role as Jaden, came back for Bonds Beyond Time, but after that was pretty much nowhere to be found. He didn't do conventions like other voice actors and wasn't at all present on social media. People speculated he just wasn't very active, or that it was just a job that he didn't think much about, or that people who didn't like GX would send him hate mail. All speculation, no proof of anything. He wouldn't return to the role until GX was added to Duel Links.
Why did I delete without checking first?
Especially when they added Season 4 Jaden and the Supreme King as separate characters, and we got to hear Matthew's different take on both of them. What I'm trying to say is that appearances from Matthew were rare. So seeing him booked for this was a big deal. On the Yu-Gi-Oh! Subreddit, there was a coordinated effort from people attending the WCQ to attend the live duel and show as much love to the actors as they could, to let them know, in such a rare appearance, that they were loved within the community. And it took the energy of the usual duels and made it even more exciting.
Whoa, wait a second. You need to discard a Destiny Hero monster before you can draw 2 cards with Destiny drawn, don't you?
Are you kidding? Dude, you must have fallen behind in your studies, Jaden. Oh, but don't worry. I won't tell Crowler. Discarding a Destiny Hero monster is a cost to activate the effect of Destiny Draw, but Diamond Dude only copies its effect. That means I get to skip the downside and go straight to drawing 2 cards.
Makes sense to me.
I send Destiny Hero Celestial and Destiny Hero Maleficent.
Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh! Do be like that sometimes, Jaden.
Fusion summon the one, the only Destiny Hero Destroyer.
This is really how loud YouTube is. Okay, can I try this matchup again?
And the North American Championship.
These events are still going strong, with Yugi vs. Solomon happening last year to promote the Shining Sarcophagus and Millennium decks. And hopefully this year, we'll get to see another
this
new
is more
combo
like it.
we've never seen before.
We got Molt Charming. Oh no. Whatever shall we do? Okay, finally I can resolve 7th
Card
Tachyon.
storylines. The artwork of Yu-Gi-Oh! May serve no express gameplay purpose, but its importance really can't be downplayed. Yu-Gi-Oh! Card art is
Right?
the first thing they reveal
Thank
when
fucking
revealing
God.
new cards. It's the first thing many players look at when they look for a deck to play.
Same type
And
or
even cards with
attribute
horrible effects
and
can be looked on
same
fondly
level.
because their artwork is so beautiful. That's why when archetypes like Mayakashi come around with artwork this good and gameplay this bad, people are gonna get grumpy about it. You put some of the most unique monster designs and fun cultural references on a deck that has to summon the same 5 monsters twice to end on a turn skip.
Light.
However, Mayakashi is a great example of an advantage of this sort of artwork, because it's
says
part of what's called
or,
a card storyline.
which is
Card
very
storylines
confusing
are
to
when
me.
The artists of Yu-Gi-Oh! Use the artwork of a card in an archetype to tell a story.
It's a net
across
neutral
multiple
search.
cards.
And
With
it has an
Mayakashi,
extra
for
deck
example,
condition.
It shows the story of
I
a
like it
years-long
a lot.
war between
Oh, and
exorcist
also it
samurai
locks you.
and the yokai they fight, including a young squire and ghost girl who become friends, until the squire finds out about the ghost's deception, and the two fight. Before the fight can end, a second yokai steals both their powers, and the pair team up to take her down. This is among the more simple storylines, but serves as a great template to understand the format. Across the various Ghost Meets Girl cards and Faithful Hour, we see Daki and Squire meet, their fight begin, Yuki Onna interrupt, and the two working together to beat her.
Oh wait, shit, I
Card
summoned from the
storylines
deck
like
already.
this have existed for as long as the game has.
Holy
And
shit.
over the years, they've only gotten more complex and intertwining as the game advances. A fan-favorite example of this is the Skull Servant story. This follows a lowly level 1 monster named Skull Servant, as he gets into hijinks across his afterlife. We see him getting resurrected, him getting blown up, him trying to find the pride to fight on, him picking up dog poop. We get to meet his boss, the king of the Skull Servants, but we also get to see his boss in his off time during white baking. We meet his friends in The Lady in White and White Mare, as well as the kids he looks after in White Prince and Princess. We see him go on vacation, only to get stopped at the airport in There Can Be Only One. And their pet dog, Skulldog
I love that
Marin,
art.
gets taken in for quarantine.
I hate the card though.
Skulldog Marin himself is actually a spin-off character with his own storyline based around his early life as outstanding dog Marin, with a young boy losing him in Where Art Thou, before he gets infected by darkness, dies, and then gets resurrected by the Skull Servants to be their new pet. The child who originally owned Marin then replaced him with a robotic version of the same dog, so he couldn't lose him or let him die. A story of a similar length is the Goblin of Greed storyline, starting on the card Upstart Goblin with this haughty goblin noble throwing down coins to a beggar. Pretty soon, though, the stock market crashes and the economic bubble bursts, forcing him to now beg for coins instead. With his only worldly possessions left being a stolen pot and jar of greed,
I've
he now
overcommitted.
roams the land looking for odd jobs to try to work himself back up to his former status, from performing in a circus to cutting grass. He even takes up work being the guy who puts halos on Moki Mokis. These last few aren't so much plot-focused, but rather act more like Looney Tunes bits. Every time you open a pack, there's a chance the Goblin of Greed might be getting his shit pushed in a brand new way. For one more based around plot, you need look no further than the story of Gigobite, a story about a cute little lizard with the extremely foreboding flavor text that he carries a destiny that one day his heart shall be tainted by evil. He becomes friends with Aria the Water Charmer and some other low-level normal monsters before taking on a mysterious power which evolves him into Gagagigo. Gagagigo is a much grumpier and eviler creature than his younger form, and runs afoul of the warrior company of Marauding Captain. The two do battle until their fight is interrupted by Blazing Inpachi. And despite being enemies, Marauding Captain ends up taking a blast for Gagagigo in My Body as a Shield. Inspired by his foe's confidence to risk his life to save somebody he doesn't even know, Gagagigo does the same when a new foe, Invader of Darkness, attacks. Invader of Darkness is a much heavier hitter than Blazing Inpachi though, and Gagagigo can't walk off the attack. He's knocked out, and then captured by Kozaki, an evil scientist of Dark World. He augments the injured Gagagigo into Gigagagigo, and sends him back as a warrior of evil, fighting Marauding Captain and his general, Freed. While they're able to fight him to a standstill,
there's one last thing I want to check
mutates again into
before I go to bed.
And not only defeats Freed, but Inpachi and Invader of Darkness. He would have kept rampaging until marauding Captain reappears and pleads with his friend to stop. And in seeing him, the man who saved his life and taught him justice, Gagagigo's heart is purified, and he evolves one more time into Gagagigo the Risen.
It's Water
This plotline
Fairy.
took place
God
over the course
damn
of
it.
9 years, from Gagagigo's original
thought it was
release in
like-
Dark Crisis in 2003 to Gagagigo the Risen's release in 2012. And to this day,